Hi, welcome back to Digging Through the Vault, where I, Hayes Just Dan, goes through eBay's PSA Vault in order to look and find cards for collectors that might be interested. Today's topic is going to be Celebration, released in 2021. Our budget today is still going to be under $30. So we're going to be looking at a couple 9s, maybe some 8s, maybe some 10s. I can't remember off the top of my head. But like in typical order, we'll start with the lowest, reaching to the highest. So let's begin. So for the first card that we got Pikachu, and it's not going to be the only one. We got Surfing Pikachu in a PSA 9. This will run you around $22 on eBay's PSA Vault, right? On a 10s, there's around 1,020 copies. On a 9, there's around 770 copies. And an 8 has around 130. So $22 for a Surfing Pikachu for $22. Not a bad deal. Now to the second Pikachu that I found. So we got Flying Pikachu for $25, right? This is going to be a PSA 9. So let's talk about population real quick. On a PSA 10 for this card, there is currently around 1,100, so like 1,100 copies. On a PSA 9, there's around 780 copies, and on an 8, around 130 copies. Pretty good, healthy amount. So $25 for a PSA 9, it's not the worst deal that you can find out there. For a $20 card, we got Celebrations Mew. Let's talk about population real quick. So for a PSA 10, there's around 139 copies. On a 9, this is going to be 770. And as an 8, there's going to be 500 copies. So $20 for a Celebration Mew. Now, the only thing that PSA failed to label on the vault, it's whether if it's hollow or not. I mean, if you know, please let me know or just drop it in the comment. But right now, we got it, the $20 Celebration. Moving on the list, and finally, another card that is not Pikachu. We got a Celebrations Rocket Zapdos for $25. Let's talk about population real quick. So for a 10, there's around 2,200 copies. For a 9, there's around 825. And an 8, there's around 75. So once again, we're looking around $25 for a Rocket Zapdos for Celebrations. Honestly, that's a pretty nice deal. Something that I would consider picking up myself. Now, for the next two cards, all I can say is the pictures online look horrible. Hopefully in real life, they're not exactly like that. They look better. But we're going to be talking about Celebrations Reshiram. So that's going to be the first card. So for a Celebrations Reshiram, we are looking around $29 for a PSA 9. Let's talk about population. For a 10, there's currently around 1,900 copies. On a 9, there's around 792. And in an 8, there's around 100 copies. So $29 for a Celebrations Reshiram. I understand right now this card might not be popular with Ents Reshiram that just got released not too long ago. But if you're looking for something a little bit more older, Reshiram for $29 from Celebrations, not a bad pickup. Suffering from the same problem, we got Zekrom from Celebrations. I found a PSA 9 Zekrom for $29. So let's take a quick talk. Let's talk about the population. So for a PSA 10, there's around 230 copies. For a 9, there's around 760. And for an 8, there's around 87. So $29 for a Zekrom. I mean, Zekrom doesn't really get a lot of love right now. Hopefully it will down the future, especially with Reshiram's release or Ents Reshiram's release. But $29 for a Zekrom. You guys can get both Zekrom and Reshiram for Celebrations for under $60 or around $60. That's not a bad deal. We got Celebration Dark Gyarados. So a PSA 9 for $29. Let's go ahead and talk about population, right? So for a PSA 10, we got around 3,125 copies. For a 9, we got around over 1,200 copies. And then for a PSA 8, we got 95. Right, I understand why this card is extremely popular, especially when it came to grading. Dark Gyarados has always been an iconic card. So for $29, getting a PSA 9 is not a bad deal, especially for a card that's already 5 years old. So let's go ahead and talk about one of the most graded cards that came out of this set. A card that a lot of people went after, and it has a very iconic art, something that people would recognize, and we're talking about Celebration Venusaur. So I found a PSA 9 for around $24, and when I talk about cards getting heavily graded, this is one of them. So for a PSA 10, there's around 14,000 copies of this card. A PSA 9, 7,500, and for a PSA 8, over 600 cards. So if you manage to get this card for $24, considering you're not really paying for a premium, this is a fantastic deal, especially for a card that a lot of people probably bought for their collections. And $24 is not a bad deal. At least, we're going to go ahead and talk about Celebration Blastoise. And this is by far the most heavily graded card that I found on this list. So for under $30, a PSA 9 Blastoise, you can get one for $29. So right underneath that limit, right? Let's talk about populations real quick. For a PSA 10, we're looking around 17,000 copies. For a 9, we got 8,600 copies. And for an 8, we got just about 700 copies. So $30 for Celebration Blastoise. Honestly, it kind of makes sense seeing that Blastoise has always been the second favorite starter amongst the Generation 1. But overall, $30 for this kind of card seems a little bit high with the amount of population that is out there. But if you're looking for a Blastoise with the original art or original art design, this might be the one for you. If you made it all the way through the video, please just drop a like. It will really help out. If there's anything that you want me to look for you, right, whether it's a certain set, certain cards from a certain era, and give me a budget price, let me know. I'll go ahead and put on the hours. Just leave it in a comment. I'll appreciate it. But overall, going over the celebration cards, all these cards, pretty neat. The ones that really stood out for me that I would personally want to add to my collection would be Rocket Zapdos, the Dark Gyarados, and maybe Venusaur, right? I do believe that like Blastoise and all the other cards have some decent arts, and there's a lot of Pikachus to add to your collection. But to me, that would be my top 3. Adding Dark Gyarados, or adding Rocket Zapdos, and adding the Celebration of Venusaur, because I think that's probably the best art. But overall, I hope you guys have a great day. All right, drop a comment, drop a like, and thanks.